Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to talk a little bit about DNA testing for genetics on your ball pythons, how to do it, and a couple new things that they've been coming out with. So let's get started. Hey guys, so this is only the second video I'm able to show you this little guy. I love him so much. This is little Teo. He is a super Mojave, and he has paradoxing of GHI, which is that crazy little mark right there if the camera will focus. He's got one on his tail, and he's got one on his head. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about getting testing done on your reptiles, for your ball python specifically, so you can tell the morphs, and I'll tell you what I did, how it was done, and I'm going to tell you something new that has just recently come out about animals like this who are paradoxed. So it's super easy. Go on Morphmarket. It's a little strange of a setup. Basically, you have to set up a profile. Let's say we're sending a shed in on this snake. You send in a little piece of the shed. That is how they check they check genders, I believe now. They check the morphs. I had a female that was either asphalt or yellow belly. You can't tell visually, and I didn't want to wait a whole season to breed her, so I sent in a piece of her shed. There's a whole step-by-step thing, but basically you look for a shed. You want it right away. You want to flatten it out like I have done with this right here. Is actually one of our Dumerals, but we set that one aside to show you. We let it dry. I believe it says for 2 days. Just follow the instructions on the paperwork. Once you let it dry, you only break off a piece that's like the size of a quarter. They give you like a special code. You write it on there. You make sure your handwriting is very clear, and then you're going to ship it. The only thing that's kind of annoying is you have to ship it. It ends up being about $15 to ship because it's to a specific P.O. box, I believe, and you have to do it through like UPS or USPS. Again, they explain all that type of stuff. But what they do is they're able to tell you what genetics are in your snake. So for example, with that fire and asphalt, it took a few months. It took almost 4 months, and the reason why it can take a long time is they wait to do them in big batches. So let's say they're checking for lesser or whatever the specific morph is. They wait until they have a certain amount to test it all at once to save on products, which saves on pricing, which is able to lower the pricing for it, so they don't just test it as soon as it comes in. And then they'll actually email you, and then you can look on that snake's profile, and they'll update it to positive or negative. I did the yellow belly test. It was negative, so I found out she was an asphalt. But when it comes to, let's say, this little guy right here, the new cool thing that I watched something on it from Canova, so I did a little bit more research, and this right here is what's known as a paradox. We have an entire video on paradoxing, and basically a paradox is the simplest way is calling it a birthmark. We go deep into it in the video if you guys are interested on learning about it, but basically it's just a birthmark, we'll call it. But there is such thing as a chimera. They can happen in humans and all different animals. And 2 embryos fuse inside of 1 egg, and it's actually 2 full different sets of DNA, which means in humans, there was a case where a lady wanted to get custody of her kids, but they found out her DNA didn't match. So they tested DNA from her whole body, and it turns out her reproductive organs all were DNA from what would have been her twin, but the rest of her body wasn't. So it didn't look like her kids were her kids because the DNA didn't match. So it's basically the same thing when it comes to these guys. So since he is a super Mojave, he could just have GHI paradoxing, which means that's just the birthmark that comes out in him because that was in the pairing. Or it could also mean that he is the twins of a super Mojave and a GHI that fused together. He could possibly have the reproductive system of a GHI. He could have it of a super Mojave, or he could have it of a super Mojave GHI. So there's really never been a way to check for that other than breeding. So what Canova did was they sent in a shed of a snake, and they just sent it random spot. And it came back, I think it was they thought the extra gene was clown. So they took it from the main part of the body. To keep it simple, we'll just talk about him. So what they did was they would have sent a chunk of this white part, right? So we know it's super Mojave, but they were expecting super Mojave GHI because of the way that the paradoxing was, or that they thought it was a chimera. Well, it came back not what they expected. So they went and then they said, all right, let's send a piece of shed from the paradoxing. Well, that spot genetically came back as what it looked like. So in this case, it would have came back super Mojave, GHI. So then what they did was they took, when the shed came out, they actually had their sperm plugs, which has some DNA on it, and they sent that in. So that came back as what the main body was. So they believe, they're still waiting to actually breed that animal, they believe that that animal, you could tell what it was based on their sperm plug shed. It wouldn't work for a female, but for a male, they believe that you can tell if it's a chimera versus a paradox when sending in specifically the sperm plug shedding, which when actually just doing it for like a normal snake, it doesn't say that. It says a big flat round spot from their body, but I guess if that's what you're looking for, you could probably message them. By the way, this is all, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, on morphmarket.com is where you can do all this. That's where it's through at least. But I thought that was super fascinating, that not only could you potentially find out what morph it is just by its shed, but potentially what morph it is genetically for reproduction, for its reproduction. Like I said, I don't think it would work for a female. I saw the video a while ago, and I've been doing a little research here and there as I could find it, but I think that's super fascinating. I wish I would have known that when I did the paradox versus chimera video, but it is a little bit strange for GHI to be the standard. Normally for a paradoxing, it would be the classic ball python, the normal color, but this is a GHI, which makes me hopeful that we have a Super Mojave GHI. Worst case scenario, it's just a GHI. Good case scenario, Super Mojave, and best is a Super Mojave GHI. But we got this cool little guy to make a big, nice bioactive setup when he gets older, make him a real nice, comfy cage. But one day I'll probably send in a shed just to see what they think, and then I'll probably breed him one day far off in the future just to find out if we have like a real simple female. Since he is a Super Mojave, possibly, or a GHI, probably put him to something that would throw, say, like a freeway female, so that way we would for sure know if we got Mojave in there, if we got Super Mojaves, GHI. But depending on the size of the clutch, also keep in mind you might have to do it multiple times. So let's say I bred him to a freeway female and we only got Mojave yellow bellies or Mojave asphalts. Well, that could just mean he still has GHI in him, but it was just not a big enough sample base. So you'd have to breed him to multiple females or the same female multiple times, because for example, I have a lesser pinstripe female. I've bred her the last 6-7 years. She's only ever given me 2 pinstripes this year, and in the last 5 years before that, only 1 pinstripe, and she's very much a lesser pinstripe. So sometimes you have to do it a few times to double check to make sure, but this is a little project that we're going to work on here in the next 5 years. Kind of keep an eye on how he's growing. He's super friendly. He's definitely going to be in more videos. He just came off quarantine. We got him at Rexpo. He's from Python Addictions. If you guys haven't seen them, make sure you subscribe to their YouTube channel. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do new videos every single week. I'll see you guys in the next video.